The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, and across the moat from Oakland, as I jokingly remarked to my honored guest, Robert Bernardo. How are you, sir?
I am fine. Thank you so much, Ralph, for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. As I said, I'm interested in talking to the most interesting people on the planet, and you certainly are. Robert, what's your official title? Manager of the Port of Oakland? Am I correct?
My official title is the Director of Communications for the Port of Oakland. So basically, I run the media office for the port. Okay.
And what's the most common question that you're faced with these days, right off the bat?
Gosh. Well, as you probably know, Ralph, we operate 3 business lines at the Port of Oakland. So we operate an international airport. We also operate an international seaport. And we operate 20 miles of real estate, which includes public parks. So the questions really vary. It depends on the day and it depends on the season. If it's travel season, we get a lot of questions about flights and flight delays. If it's back to school season, we get a lot of questions about shipping and shipments and things like that. So it just really depends what we're talking about.
Are people concerned about safety in general these days with the way of the world and certainly the way of Oakland? It's been horrible crime-wise, and having raised a son in Oakland for a few years before moving to Alameda. I was over on 59th and Telegraph, between 59th and Shattuck. And that would have been no place these days to raise a kid. So I'm glad I got out to Alameda early on. But this was years ago. And what's happened to Oakland? You're the communicator. What would you say if you were asked to by someone in Paris, for instance, that wanted to come over here to start a business in Oakland? What would you say is going on?
Well, that's a really good question. And, of course, at the Port of Oakland, we deal with this issue as well because crime, first of all, crime affects the entire Bay Area, all the way from up north to down to San Jose and, from the East Bay to the peninsula. And I myself live on the peninsula. And, we have to deal with crime on the peninsula as well as also in downtown San Francisco, I'm sure. So it's everywhere. It affects our businesses to the extent that, we want to make sure that people who travel through Oakland Airport are safe during their visit here in the Bay Area. And the people who come to Jack London Square, we want to make sure that when they visit the restaurants at Jack London Square that they're safe. So that is an issue as well. So we are very concerned, and we are working very closely with the city and with Oakland Police Department on making sure that the areas that impact us are safer. And so, yeah,
let me
very
ask you
big
this.
concern.
Let me quickly ask you this. Do the powers that be realize that you've got to start when the kids are young, and to rehabilitate to, later on in life, this, that, and the other thing, isn't really working in general, not just in Oakland, in the world. But we've got to start as a society by throwing some money and time into investing in good teachers, in schools, and putting our our money there, or else it's just going to go on from generation to generation, and there's going to be no stop to it.
Right. Right.
Can you tell me a progressive politician in the East Bay who's got that philosophy?
Well, I have. Well, since I live on the peninsula, I'm a lot more familiar with the elected officials on the peninsula. But to your point, it is a really important issue. The topic of education is so top of mind because it will solve a lot of the issues that we have right now, from crime to just to jobs. Education has been traditionally underserved. I think not just here in the Bay Area, but I think on a national level. I don't think we prioritize education. And when you compare us to other countries that do, where they really invest in the educational system, from early education to colleges and universities, it's showing that what's happening right now in America. It's showing. All of these, the lack of investments that we've done over the decades. It's really hurt the economy. It's really hurt in terms of law and order issues, where we see crime just on the rise. All over. It's not just here, even in California. In my travels, it's everywhere, all around the United States, and it's something that we have to own, and we have to realize that the lack of investments that we've had over the decades when it comes to education. Here's what's happening. The results. This is what's happening. It's sad, very sad.
It's forced us as a country to pay more attention to security than ever before. And
right.
when it gets to that point, you have to wonder whether it would have been a good investment years ago to throw some money in education. And I don't think we need security as much. But let me ask you, how are the problems in the Middle East affecting Oakland and the Port of Oakland directly?
Well, the conflicts in the Middle East aren't really impacting us in any way because our primary trade partner on the shipping side is Asia. So our cargo, yes, we do have cargo that goes to Europe, and in that geographical area, but really most of our trade is with Asia, and specifically Japan, Vietnam, China, South Korea. So really, we're not that impacted by what's happening in the conflicts in the Middle East.
Well, let me say, this morning on the news, I saw some footage of our governor, Gavin Newsom, with the president of China. I don't know if the emperor, whatever the hell he calls himself. Mm-hmm. But how big a force? Gavin Newsom runs like the 5th biggest economy in the world. Mm-hmm. How big a force is he in the Democratic Party? Just is there a chance that he's going to be our next candidate? God forbid something happens to Biden, or God forbid maybe the people will say, we've got to win this coming election against Trump, so we can't afford the risk of running Biden with his baggage, and it's not as bad baggage as Trump, but go play tit for tat these days, and for no reason or another, Trump seems to have a control in this country that's scary, and he cannot possibly be reelected so that democracy is maintained. We've got to get him out of there. Has anybody seriously thought that Gavin Newsom is ready?
Well, to answer your question, I think that Governor Newsom is a tremendous force within the Democratic Party. He's very well loved within the Democratic Party, as is President Biden. Okay, President Biden is also very well loved within the Democratic Party. And I think Democrats realize that, we have to unite in 2024 because there is so much at stake, and not just on the executive level, but the House, with what happened today in the House with the new speaker from Louisiana. There's so much at stake, and really, if we as Democrats do not unite as a solid force going into the 2024 general election, we will risk losing a lot. And the Senate is the perfect example of that, where right now our strength in the Senate is tenuous at best, and going into 2024, I mean, it's looking kind of scary.
Robert, do you consider yourself a politician?
I'm a retired politician.
Oh, okay. Tell me about that.
In San Mateo County, I am a former harbor commissioner. A lot of people don't realize that San Mateo County, which is made up of 20 cities and 18 towns that go from basically Brisbane down to Menlo Park, and then the east-west goes from about Half Moon Bay to Foster City. San Mateo County has two public harbors. There's Oyster Point Marina, and then there's also Pillar Point Harbor. And I was very honored to serve for 8 years, 2 terms, as a harbor commissioner in San Mateo County.
Wow.
Yeah.
What brought you to that? What's your training? You seem to be nautically oriented. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
How did that start?
That's a good question. So there was an opening at the time on the Harbor District, and I was encouraged by some local politicians to run for it. And I had really no intention of running for anything in my life. I love politics. I used to joke, my friends know this, that when I was a child, while all of my friends would watch cartoons, I would watch gubernatorial and Senate debates as a child. I don't know why I liked that. I loved it. And I grew up on politics. When I was a teenager, I could name all the governors and all the senators and all the cabinet positions. I just love it. I don't know what it is. So anyway, I had been serving, this was in 2010. I had been serving on the South San Francisco Planning Commission for, I don't know how many years. So I was on the Planning Commission, and I was approached by some local elected officials saying, you should run for this harbor position because, one, you would be very knowledgeable about the issues.
Right. And
two, the experience that I bring as a planning commissioner. So I understood, I understood how development, the process of developments and things like that, and zoning issues. Speaking of comfortably zoned, zoning issues.
Okay.
So
we have issues, if that's what you mean.
No. It was a bad joke. I know it was a really bad joke. It kind of.
Well, there are only 6 jokes in the world, they say, and comfortably zoned. Joking about them could be very profitable for some comedian in the future. Anyway.
So that's how I got it.
What did you go to school here in California?
I did. Just by way of background, I was born in the Philippines. I was born in Manila, and my parents came to the United States when I was 2 years old. So I was 2 when I came to California, and I pretty much grew up in California in the peninsula. I went to elementary school and high school in San Mateo County.
Okay. Who is the one teacher, instructor that influenced you most as a child that that you either patterned yourself after or encouraged you? Who is an educator that you can name that's responsible for all of this articulate speaking, for instance?
Wow,
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that that compliment. That's a huge compliment. I really appreciate it. When I think of teachers, I've had many, and my goodness, I've had a lot of really good teachers over the years. There's so many of them, but gosh, if I had to think of one, probably I would probably say the late Steve Jubb. His name is Steve Jubb, Jubb, and he was my English teacher in high school. And he was a creative writing instructor, and he encouraged us to really, write as much and as often as we can, because he said writing is so essential to everything you do in life, whether it's building a resume, whether it's writing a speech, whether it's writing a communication in social media. Writing is so essential, and it's also related to speaking as well. So he would probably be the person who was the most influential in terms of education. My high school teacher, English teacher, Steve Jubb, the late Steve Jubb, great guy.
Okay. What did you read as a kid that may have prepared you for the life that you live?
Well, here's the thing. I would love to say that I was really into classics and academic works, but really as a kid I loved comics. I really like comics, and I love science fiction. So I grew up on science fiction, and that's still what I enjoy reading. I know I have a lot of friends who are very much into biographies of presidents and things like that. I have to say I'm more into science fiction and fiction.
Okay. For you with comics, was it Superman or Batman?
Oh my goodness. Well, between the two, I like them both, okay? And I also like Marvel. But between those two, I like Batman.
All right. It's a choice. It's not a right or wrong.
It's a tough choice because I really like them both.
Okay. What influenced you music-wise? What did you listen to? And I'll ask the same comparative question. Was it the Beatles or the Stones for you?
Oh, gosh.
Okay. Or was it the Kinks?
Well, okay. My musical tastes over the years have changed as I've gotten older. It hasn't really stayed the same. I mean, there are some artists that I have always liked, but, in high school, I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 1968. I was born in 68. So when I was in high school, it was the 80s, and so I loved new wave music. And I grew up on bands like Men at Work and Spandau Ballet, and I like Madonna, and, I love Kate Bush. So that was the music I grew up with and I'm most familiar with, and that's probably what I play. 75% in my car, I play 1980s classics, new wave classics.
Well, maybe I'm dating myself with the question because I'm a tad bit older than you, and I've got to get with what's happening with these kids today.
Well, but I didn't answer your question though. I have to answer your question. You asked a good question about the Beatles, and I like the Beatles. I love the Beatles.
Oh, okay. I thought you were avoiding the question.
No. I love the Beatles. I love the Beatles, and Hey Jude was the number one song when I was born in 1968. So I love
Hey Jude? Did
Hey
you
Jude.
call me? Oh,
no, Hey Jude.
That was a slow. I thought, Hey Jude, you better get a podcast going. But
no, I would never say that. Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, you're like you say, you're a politician at heart. So
also on this topic, I'm Jewish. So I want to put that out there.
Really? Well,
Yes.
Sigerson's my fellow Yid, and how did that come about?
Oh, boy. Okay. On to another topic. So in 2000, I'm really loving this. We're touching on every topic. I love this.
Well, I'm just trying to get to know you a little bit, Robert. That's what I do.
Thank you. It's
in
an honor
return, I wouldn't care if you weren't falling under the category of the most interesting people on the planet.
Wow.
Because I'm kind of a dullard, but the one skill I have as a producer, I get people who are articulate and can communicate and answer my questions, and we get to learn from you, and we get to see what your assets are and how the Port of Oakland is blessed to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
What do you like most about your job?
Oh, okay. We shifted gears slightly. I thought I was going to talk about my conversion into Judaism. Okay, what? I
thought you said on to another.
No. No.
Because
I will talk about whatever you like.
I want you to have to get security guard when
No.
Place.
No, listen. I will talk about whatever topic you want to talk about. There's nothing off limits here.
Well, touch us with the Jew part. I don't know many Filipino Jews.
Oh, well, I do. So here's how it happened. Here's how it happened. This was probably, it was 2000. What year would it have been? Probably 2003. So around 2003. Gosh, I just realized. Wow, this was 20 years ago. Around 2003, I was religion shopping, basically, because my mother and I we had a discussion, we decided we wanted to leave Christianity because, as you probably know, Ralph, Filipinos are 99% Catholic.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah, it's 99. It's probably higher than 99%. But most Filipinos are Catholic.
There's no cure for that, of course. You realize.
Probably not. But I was like many Filipinos. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy, which meant I had to attend funerals and weddings and perform and do what I was supposed to do. And it was okay, but I really had issues with it. I mean, the religion itself, which I'm not going to go into all of it because that's a conversation in itself. But needless to say, my mother and I decided to leave the religion, and I went religion shopping. And I met with friends. I met with friends of different religions. My friends who followed Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and I had lunch with my friend Wayne, and it was my last meeting with friends about religion, and I asked him about his religion, and he said, well, I follow Judaism. I said, well, tell me about it. And we had a long conversation. It was about an hour and a half, and then I asked, well, what is the belief system, and what are some of the rituals, and what are some of the things that you do, and what do you like about the religion? What do you hate about the religion? And the more I learned, the more I realized that I aligned with Judaism. And at that point, I connected with a rabbi in San Francisco, and I went through the conversion process. And by March of 2005, I'm trying to remember the date, that's when I became officially Jewish. I went into the mikveh and I converted.
Wow. Were you discouraged from converting at first until they found out your sincerity?
No. The synagogue that I was with, Shar Zahav, was in San Francisco. The synagogue's called Shar Zahav, which means Golden Gate, by the way. and
Oh.
they were very, very welcoming. And I loved it. That was the part I loved the most. They're very welcoming. And then, a few years later, my mother followed. She also went into Judaism. And so in my family, my late mother, I should say, we were the two Jewish people in the family.
Did they require that you take on a certain amount of guilt?
No.
Okay. Or
no.
you might have already had that being a Catholic. So
yeah, probably, especially growing up Catholic. Yes.
Hey, would you talk about? I'll be serious for a second and ask you a very serious question.
Sure.
Would you talk about the similarities between Catholics and Jews?
Similarities. Let's see. Similarities. Well, I'm trying to think. I think both religions are very welcoming for the most part. For the most part, okay. Especially new people who are considering going into that religion. There are rituals. There are very important rituals in both religions. Having been an altar boy, I remember all of the Catholic ones, and then in Judaism, there's a lot of ritual involved. So I'd say the rituals, which actually are very beautiful. That's one of the things I love about Judaism are the rituals.
Yeah, you got Judaism. You got to pick out a good deli. That's the first thing, and that's another problem in this country. Delis are a dying breed.
Yeah, that's true. It's sad, but yeah, you're right. And especially after the pandemic, a lot of delis have closed. It's very sad.
Yes. Hey, Robert, you're a terrific guest. I think I got to know you on behalf of my audii, and I'm just hoping you had a good enough time that you consider coming back.
Well, I had a blast, Ralph, and I'd be honored to come back. Just let me know. I will do it again. I will chat with you again. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Robert, for saying that. That makes my day. And thank you for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm blessed to have you, Robert. Thanks for being a great guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Be well. Thank you for listening, everybody. Adios and happy trails.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.